If you have ever looked at the relationship between the United States and Iran and wondered how it got this bad, this is that story. It starts before 1953. It starts with oil. But 1953 is where it became irreversible. The Anglo-Iranian Oil Company was a British firm operating on Iranian soil, extracting Iranian oil and returning to Iran approximately 16% of the profits. The British government owned 52% of the company. This arrangement had been in place for decades. It was presented as a partnership. Mohammad Mossadegh was elected Prime Minister of Iran in 1951. He was 70 years old. He occasionally conducted official government business from bed, in his pajamas. Mossadegh was not a radical. He was a nationalist. He believed that Iranian oil should benefit Iran. This was considered by the British government an alarming position. In 1951, Mossadegh nationalized the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company. The British response was immediate. They imposed an embargo, froze Iranian assets, and began lobbying the United States to intervene. Britain framed this to the Americans as a communist threat. Iran was going to fall to the Soviets. The oil was secondary. This was not entirely true. The oil was not secondary. The Truman administration declined to intervene. Eisenhower took office in January 1953. The answer changed. The CIA was given an operational budget and an objective. They needed someone to run it on the ground in Tehran. They chose Kermit. Kermit Roosevelt Jr. was 37 years old in 1953. He was Harvard educated. He was a CIA officer. He was the grandson of Theodore Roosevelt. The CIA sent the grandson of a president to Tehran to overthrow its government. This was considered a proportionate response. Operation Ajax, known to British intelligence as Operation Boot, was a covert operation to destabilize the Mossadegh government, turn the Iranian military against him, and restore the Shah to full power. Roosevelt ran this operation from a basement in Tehran. His budget was approximately $1 million. Roosevelt's methods were comprehensive. He hired Iranian newspaper editors to publish anti-Mossadegh propaganda. He paid clerics to denounce him from pulpits. He hired street gangs to pose as Mossadegh supporters and commit acts of violence to make him appear dangerous and unstable. He bribed military officers. He reported back to Langley that things were going well. This was not yet accurate. On August 15, 1953, the operation launched. It failed immediately and completely. The military officers Roosevelt had bribed either didn't act or acted incorrectly. Mossadegh's supporters flooded the streets. The operation collapsed within hours. The Shah of Iran, upon learning that the CIA's first attempt to restore him to his throne had failed, fled the country. He flew to Rome. He was there for 4 days. He gave interviews. He went to the beach. This is documented. Roosevelt received a message from the Central Intelligence Agency of the United States, ordering him to abort the operation and leave Tehran. He decided this was a suggestion. He spent the next 4 days rebuilding. More money distributed. More officers contacted. More gangs hired. August 19th, 1953. The second attempt was louder, faster, and more direct. Paid crowds flooded the streets. Military units switched sides. Pro-Shah forces moved on the city. By the afternoon, a man who had ignored a direct order to leave had overthrown a democratically elected government using hired crowds and bribed soldiers. He had been in the country for 5 weeks. Mossadegh's residence was stormed. He surrendered. He was arrested, tried for treason against the Shah, and sentenced to 3 years in prison. After prison, he was placed under house arrest at his home in the village of Ahmadabad. He never held public office again. He never left Ahmadabad again. The Shah returned from Rome. He was restored to full power. The Anglo-Iranian Oil Company was restructured, and a new consortium was formed, giving American oil companies a 40% share. You may know the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company by its current name. The oil, which was never the secondary concern, was divided among British and American companies. Iran received 50% of profits under the new arrangement. This was presented as an improvement. Roosevelt returned to Washington. He received a commendation. He later wrote a book called Counter-Coup, in which he described the operation in considerable detail. He described it as a success. He did not revise the book. The Shah ruled Iran for 26 years after the coup. His rule was maintained in part by Savak, his secret police trained in part by the CIA. Savak's methods were documented extensively by human rights organizations. The government, the CIA installed to prevent an authoritarian takeover, maintained its power through an apparatus of surveillance, imprisonment, and torture. The CIA was aware of this. It was considered preferable to the alternative. In 1979, the Iranian Revolution removed the Shah from power. The government that replaced him was not the secular democracy Mossadegh had represented. It was an Islamic theocracy under Ayatollah Khomeini. This was not what the CIA had been trying to prevent in 1953. It was considerably worse. In November 1979, Iranian students stormed the American embassy in Tehran. 52 American diplomats were held hostage for 444 days. The Iranians who stormed the embassy were aware of Operation Ajax. They mentioned it specifically. They had been aware of it for 26 years. The Americans who had run Operation Ajax had apparently not considered this a likely outcome. The United States and Iran have not had formal diplomatic relations since 1980. The tension between the two countries, the sanctions, the nuclear negotiations, the proxy conflicts, the decades of mutual suspicion, traces a direct line back to a basement in Tehran in 1953 and a 37-year-old CIA officer who ignored an order to come home. The operation was considered a success by the CIA in 1953. Mohammad Mossadegh nationalized his country's oil. He was removed from office by two foreign governments who preferred a different arrangement. He spent the last 14 years of his life under house arrest in a village outside Tehran. He died in 1967. He was 84 years old. Kermit Roosevelt Jr. died in 2000. He was 84 years old, the same age as Mossadegh. This has been Unhinged History. Everything you just heard is real. We checked.